figured you'd got that.
Whoa, really? God, you look good.
Thank you. Thank you. It was.
So what kind of celebration did you have?
I will. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. So, for my fellow commissioners, as a reminder, your mics are going to remain on tonight. So that are going to help with some of our logistics. Whitney, can you go ahead and call the roll?
Commissioner Brewer,
Here.
Commissioner McDaniel,
Here.
Commissioner McCowan,
Here.
Commissioner Jablonski,
Here.
Commissioner Byrd, Commissioner McClure, Commissioner Griffith,
Here.
Commissioner Kendall,
Here.
and Commissioner Parker.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is election of officers for 2025. So I am taking nominations for chair, vice chair, and secretary.
Who is not here?
Well, Erica is not here.
I nominate Erica for chair.
Okay, so we have a nomination and a second for chair. Can I get a nomination for vice chair?
Once again.
Erica?
Can't do Erica again.
It can't be her again.
Kevin, aren't you vice chair?
No, Michael is.
Okay. Michael, would you like?
I nominate Michael for vice chair.
Second.
Okay, and then now I need a nomination and a second for secretary. And I'll be happy to do it again if somebody wants to do it.
I'll nominate Commissioner Parker to serve as secretary.
Let me loose behind things. Okay, so thank you. So we've got a nomination of Erica for chair, Michael Jablonski for vice chair, and myself for secretary. Okay,
Sounds good.
let's take a vote.
Teacher not show up.
You may vote. All votes have been 7-0.
Thank you. Okay, next item is our consent items. And so we have last week or last month's minutes. So consideration of approval, acceptance, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement of minutes as follows. Planning Commission meeting minutes from December 12th of 2024.
I'll move to approve. Second.
And a vote.
You may vote. All votes have been cast and it carries 7-0.
Okay, so, the third one, short form plat. Consideration of approval, acceptance, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement of SFP 2425-4. Consideration of the short form plat submitted by RAATKO LLC, Cedar Creek Consulting Corporation, from Dunkin' Donuts located at 2525 and 2531 West Main Street. This is on the consent docket, so would anybody like to remove that from the consent docket or approve as is?
I'll move to approve.
And a vote?
You may vote.
Now, moving on to the non-consent items. Item number 4 in the agenda, 201 West Apache rezoning. This is for the consideration of approval, acceptance, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement of ordinance O-2425-19 of the Council of the City of Norman, Oklahoma, amending Section 36-201 of Chapter 36 of the Code of the City of Norman so as to remove lots 1 and 2 in Block 7 of D.L. Larsh's First Addition to Norman, Cleveland County, Oklahoma, from the CCFBC Center City Form-Based Code and place same in the CCPUD Center City Planned Unit Development and providing for the severability thereof, 201 West Apache Street. This item has been requested to be removed from this meeting and moved to the February 13th, 2025 meeting. I have a motion to remove or allow this to be postponed.
Make a motion to postpone to the February
13th.
13th meeting.
Second.
And a vote.
You may vote. All votes have been cast, and it's carries 7-0.
Item number 5, 428 Buchanan rezoning for the consideration of approval, acceptance, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement of ordinance O-2425-20, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Norman, Oklahoma, amending section 36-201 of the Code of the City of Norman so as to remove lots 45 and 46 in Block 1 of Larsh's University addition to Norman, Cleveland County, Oklahoma, from CCFBC Center City Form-Based Code District and Urban General Frontage and placing the same CCPUD Center City Planned Unit Development District and providing for the severability thereof at 428 Buchanan Avenue. Does staff have a presentation?
Laura Hoggett with the Planning Department. Ani Use is usually our Center City guru, but she's doing HD, the Historic District Commission tonight, so I'll be doing this one. Okay, so this is at 428 Buchanan. It's currently Center City Form-Based Code Urban General, and they would like to request a Center City Planned Unit Development. Here's the subject tract. It currently has a single-family dwelling unit on it. Here's an aerial showing how the property is developed now with some parking. Here's the structure that's there. This shows the parking space that's in front of the existing unit, which I'll get to why that's important later. This is looking north toward McFarland on Buchanan, across the street, and then looking south on Buchanan. Here's the proposed layout of the structure with the site plan. So we did receive a request to go over the differences between what's allowed by Center City and what the applicant is requesting. So Center City does require a minimum of 4 stories in this location. They are proposing 4 stories. And you have to have a minimum of 3 dwelling units in this frontage. And they are requesting 10. Here's a list of all requested uses. So they're requesting residential uses and group living on all 4 floors, and then commerce just on the first floor. And they did request to remove or to not allow vehicle repair and self-storage, which is allowed by right in the urban general frontage. So the urban general frontage does not have a maximum impervious coverage. They're requesting 79%, which is allowed after staff in planning and public works have reviewed. They're providing 15% open space, which is the requirement. They're allowed to use patios and rooftop decks to meet the requirement. They are requesting a reduction in the width of the building. Usually in Center City, it's from lot line to lot line to cover the whole street frontage. Because this does not have an alley, which is fairly unique for the Center City area, they are requesting to allow pedestrian access along one side to get to the rear of the property. This would move the required build line along Buchanan from 2 feet behind the property line to 7 feet. So the required build line is the line they have to build on, so essentially their front setback. And this is to allow for additional privacy and for an awning on the front of the structure. So along the lines of the pedestrian access that they're requesting, instead of being 100% of the RBL, they'll be at 75. And then the rear setback will change from 15 to 10 because they're kind of just moving the structure back to allow for more space in the front. Center City requires that signs be 2 feet in height, and they're requesting to have 3 feet in height. And then there are 24 required parking spaces, so Center City is one area we still have parking minimums requirements. They are requesting to have all of their parking off-site, which the code does allow for the parking to be placed within 1,000 feet, so they have submitted their parking lease agreement, and everyone has reviewed it and said it's good to go, it meets the requirements. And then there was the on-street parking space directly in front of this. It's being removed to provide an aerial fire lane. And our traffic engineer looked at this and said that was fine. And then the usual code does not allow for any exposed fastener metal panels. And the CCPUD is requesting to allow them except for R-style panels. They're requesting 2 bike racks instead of 3, and sorry, Ani's made this for me. The minimum of 5 feet clear width between the facade and the awning support post is 8 in the code, and they are proposing 5. But it will not extend into the right-of-way as part of moving their structure behind the RBL. And I'm available for questions. The applicant and the architect is here as well.
Does anybody have questions for staff?
I do. I have quite a few questions, actually. So I'm just thinking about the way the city develops as we densify. And one question I have is about park access and access to open space. I'm fine with densifying the city, of course, but as we reduce open space, people are going to need access to open space, not on the lot. Do you know how far away the nearest parks are from this location?
I don't, do you? I'm sorry.
Okay. Another question I have. With the parking situation, so they're proposing some kind of agreement where they can park at McFarland, is that right?
No, I think it's it's at McFarland. I'm sorry.
Okay. I made these notes a
Filling in.
month ago, sorry. So so I'm just kind of going off of what I wrote a month ago, so I might have some things off. But I like the idea in principle, but is this going to be hard for the city to regulate? I mean, because McFarland could sell the same spot to multiple buildings, over a 20-year period.
So they would be reserved for this project for 20 years according to the lease agreement. I think to change it, they'd have to bring it back, right? Sorry, I don't know.
So there is some kind of organization on the back end so that we couldn't accidentally have the same spot sold to multiple developments.
Right, so I'm sorry, Elizabeth Muckala, Assistant City Attorney. On page 8 of the PUD is where parking's addressed, and it says currently it will be provided via a lease. Now, this lease is not attached to the PUD, it's not an exhibit. What it requires is that those 24 off-site parking spaces be reserved. But, there is language about during football games, they're not going to be available without additional payment. And to answer your specific question, no, it's enforceable that they have to have parking via this lease, but there's further language in the PUD that says if they can otherwise comply with CCFBC parking requirements another way, then they can do that so that they have options. However, if they choose to do it by lease, it could be difficult. We ask that in these leases, they provide us notice whenever the lease is terminated and they get a replacement lease, but it could be tricky following up on that.
Are there examples of this already in Norman?
We have had some developments come forward when the language under CCFPC was a little bit different. And I want to clarify something. Ms. Hoggett said that this meets requirements. Technically, since the last update of the Center City Form-Based Code, there aren't specific requirements for these leases. So what you get is what the PUD says you get, which is why we try to highlight that in the staff report so you can see. But yes, in the past, when the language is a bit different, we did have people come through with covenants that burden the property, which we did think were a little bit more permanently enforceable. Yes, and one example of a lease would be the Noun property that came through. However, that's a little bit distinguishable because it didn't have a parking requirement in the first place. So it was really more of a surplus situation. And I wouldn't say that that was analyzed to the same degree that this one would have been because it's coming through on a property with a requirement.
Thank you. Another question. So it sounds like there's no recycling on the property. Did I read that correctly? Which just seems really odd because we have trash and recycling all over town.
Right. So my understanding, and Nathan or someone from utilities would probably have a more eloquent answer, but they have not required recycling in Center City. I couldn't tell you why, but they're not. Like, yeah, they don't do it anywhere in Center City.
I did not know that. Thank you. Oh.
I think maybe there was some mix-up of what goes in which polycart, so.
Well, we figured it out in Ward 1, so yeah, I'm sure they can figure it out.
Different population.
I do have one more question for staff. So my notes say they were requesting a special allowance on signage, and you said this, but in Exhibit A, I didn't see a sign, and so I was confused about what was being locked in with the design, because what's in the PUD is the design, and so if there's not a sign in there, what are we locking in? Again, I made these notes a month ago, I apologize, so it's.
Page 7.
So, yeah, he could tell you what they're proposing, but they have to meet the provisions of Section M, along with they can have 3 feet. So we'd have to look in the ordinance to see what that could be, but it's pretty much letters can be 3 feet tall.
Thank you.
Do you want to tell us the sign?
Sure. We didn't distinguish on the graphic where the sign was in reference to that elevation, just because that hadn't been decided yet, but we wanted the opportunity to enlarge the letters to a maximum of 3 feet instead of the 2-foot allowance in the code. And so that's why we put that in there.
I'm curious, now I'm curious, how like 3 letters or like 20 letters? Like how wide?
I do not know.
Okay,
Yeah, they haven't branded it
Okay.
yet, so it's still, that's the reason it's not shown on the graphic.
great, thank you.
Laura, I had a question about the, will you go back a few slides just to the first slide that you had about the number of residential units? Okay, so the PUD requests 10 residential dwelling units. The FBC requires a minimum of 3 dwelling units. So is that really a change, or is that just noting what is included in the PUD?
Just noting what's included.
Okay.
So they're going above the required minimum.
Any other questions of staff? Thank you, Laura. Does the applicant do you have a separate presentation?
I do not. I could clarify any points.
Do y'all have any questions for the applicant?
I do. Is there a reason, if we're going 4 stories at this location, why ground floor garage was not considered if you're wanting 10 residential units? It's a lot of parking off-site.
It is. We did consider the garage, and to reduce the density on that site with one whole floor to create more parking when there's adjacent parking that's not being utilized, we thought was not in our best interest, and frankly, probably not in the best interest of the city. There's a lot of vacant parking lots that don't get used 95% of the time. And so what we're trying to do is keep within the flavor of the code, which is trying to create a higher density in an urban area near Campus Corner without creating more parking lots, garages, et cetera.
I have a question to follow up on parking. It was mentioned that there are provisions in the lease where game day parking would not be available. How do you handle that with your tenants? Like, where are they supposed to go if that's where they normally park? Or they just pay?
I was going to say, so for me, my tenants, we always pay for those if one of those scenarios. Now, if this is not my facility, it's one that we're developing for a client. And so I do not know how he's going to do that, if he's going to request the tenants pay themselves. But I do know that the top floor of this is a personal residence of the developer, or the person who owns the building. And so he would be creating that same scenario for himself. So my assumption is that he would either pay, or they would have to find parking elsewhere. And I guess on game days, it'd probably be pay for parking.
I actually have more questions.
Great, yeah.
Okay, so my notes say, what are the multiple attached structures? But I can't remember what this is in reference to.
We do not have any detached structures.
Must be a bad note from before, sorry. But this one I know is relevant. So I said, why reduce the bike racks? So it sounded like should have been a required 3, but you guys want to go down to 2?
Yes, so we've realized over the course of the last 8 to 10 years of developing here that our tenants do not use the bike racks. The only time we've had a bike was when we had a football player that was gifted one, and it was stolen when he used the bike rack outside. And so our tenants park their bikes inside. We have extra space in our stairwells and in the units for that, and it's just a safety thing. I mean, I would have taken them out altogether if I thought it would have passed. It's just a waste.
I've got one last question. It's really going to be for discussion with the commissioners, but I'll go ahead and ask you since you're here. So moving the build line back to 7 feet, have you looked along Boyd, close to the railroad tracks?
I have.
There's some buildings that stagger, and that's because they got special allowance, and it looks kind of funky, and it's going to be like that for 100 years now, maybe 50. But, you know, one thought that comes to mind is if we move you back 7 feet, but then other people build it at 2 feet behind the property line, then it's going to have kind of a funky staggered look.
Yes, so well, I'll ignore the Boyd question unless you'd like me to answer that. But
No. It was just for reference.
yeah, no, I mean, I think the idea on this one is if we keep the building at 2 feet, which we can, actually, we could move it back 2 feet without coming here, so it'd be at 4. So to go from 4 to 7, we wouldn't have any opportunity for an awning or any type of front covering that was any larger than that. And so what we were really trying to do is create a pedestrian-friendly space out front where tenants or other people could utilize the front side of the building, that east side of the building overlooking Campus Corner. And that's kind of why we did it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Steve, did you have a comment?
I just had a question about the R-style fasteners and what the thinking was there.
Yeah, so I've done this in a couple of my PUDs, special use and other items. I don't know how familiar everyone is with this architecture that's on the building that the county did, the well, but all of their panels are metal panels with exposed fasteners. And so what we've done in the past here, as well as in other municipalities, is we limit the barn-style R panel that's associated with the inexpensive metal building, but we allow non-R style exposed fastener panels, similar to things that you'd see at the well and other areas here in the city. And so that way it doesn't kind of limit our opportunity even though currently we don't have metal panel design on this building at all. But
What are the exterior materials that you're considering on this?
so we have, right now we have brick and cement board siding. And so we found a historic-looking brick out of New Mexico that has the same color family that we see here on campus and just north of campus. And so, but it's a historic brick, and so it'll have all of the rustic articulation and weathering of that type of brick without, and then painted metal or painted cement board style panel around the sides and in the back in a couple of different patterns. So we'll have a lap siding in some areas, and then a panelized board and batten.
I just had a follow-up to Commissioner Jablonski's question about the RBL. Is that something that is preference, or is that kind of what your, I guess, I still have questions as to, and concerns about what that might look like if other buildings are developed around there, and you have that staggered RBL look going down the street.
So, yes, I don't know what the future holds. Next door is a building that was just, I guess it was redeveloped probably within the last 10 years, it appears. That whole back is parking lot. Next door to that is, Buchanan's an alley that was transformed into a street. I believe there are only 2 or 3 lots that are in this zoning that have this same setback and that are facing Buchanan. And so one of them is Othello's next door, and then the other side of it is the parking for the structure that's facing University, and then I believe there's an apartment complex that is facing University. And so I don't see that being, I don't see this creating the same scenario that was at Boyd Street.
Any other questions? Appreciate it, thanks. Do you have something? You look like you do.
Just a couple clarifications. Recycling is in Center City for single family, but it's not for these larger commercial multifamily developments. And the closest park is Centennial Park, which is just northwest of McFarland Church. It's about a 6-minute walk from this property.
So it's about like a block and a half. Is that about right?
I think so, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Does anyone from the audience have any comments that they'd like to make about this? Any members of the commission need to discuss any items before we? I will take a motion.
Second.
And a vote, please.
You may vote. All votes have been cast and it carries 7-0.
All right, appreciate that. Item number 6, Wildwood Community Church Special Use. This is for the full acceptance, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement of ordinance O-2425-21, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Norman, Oklahoma, amending Section 36-201 of the Code of the City of Norman so as to grant special use for a church, temple, or other place of worship with a waiver of Section 36-547A4 pertaining to the exterior appearance of the R1 Single Family Dwelling District for Lot 1 in Block 17 of Hall Park, 4th Edition of the Indian Meridian, Cleveland County, Oklahoma, and providing for the severability thereof at 1501 24th Avenue Northeast. Does staff have a presentation?
Hi, I'm Kelly Abel with the Planning Department. On tonight's agenda, we have a special use site plan amendment for a church, temple, or other place of worship. The request is to add a gymnasium, and they have requested a waiver to the exterior appearance with the building materials. Here is the subject tract. It is currently zoned R1, and it will remain R1. There is a church on the property, and the church will remain. There's an overall of the site. There is, whoops, back up here. Okay, there is agricultural land to the east and to the north. There is R1 across the street to the west, and then to the south, there is some C1 local commercial district. Here is looking north. That's south. This is to the west. And then that's the site. Here is the proposed site plan. They will be meeting all of the required commercial zoning regulations for landscaping and off-street parking. Here are the proposed building elevations. So for the waiver on all non-residential buildings, under section 36-547, it requires 80% brick and masonry materials to cover 80% of the walls exclusive of doors and windows. And then Libby, is this, okay, Libby Smith is here for the applicant if you have any questions. Staff is also available, and we forward this item to you for consideration.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff?
I have a question for staff.
What's that? What you got?
I made a lot of notes last month.
Okay.
So it sounds like there's a bridge on the property that they want the city to take ownership of. Did I understand that correctly?
Correct.
Okay. So my question, I'll just say them all because they're connected.
Okay.
What comes with the city accepting this bridge? What are the maintenance costs? Are there liabilities for accepting this? And what are the benefits to the city? Because this really looks like something that should belong to the private entity and not the city. I apologize. I should send these questions in advance.
Yeah,
I've been sitting on them for a month.
I don't have answers to all those questions. I can research them for you, though.
Okay.
Any other questions of staff? Yeah. Well, we're gonna.
Just pause and see if
Well,
we can
no,
get some
We'll go ahead and
answers.
take the applicant's presentation, but
Okay.
I'm interested as to what Mr. McClellan's gonna tell us in a minute.
Okay, gotcha.
But, yeah, Libby, go ahead.
I'm Libby Smith on behalf of the applicant. And just to answer that question is I think we're maintaining the bridge. It's just over city land, so we had to get their approval in order to build it. So I don't think the city will be responsible for any of the maintenance of that bridge, if that answers your question.
Partially, but if it's not in writing, then it doesn't count.
Okay. But that is not actually part of the rezoning special use
Okay.
application. So Libby Smith on behalf of the applicant. I have Herschel Thompson with the applicant, Tony Bragg is the engineer, and then Sean went somewhere. But that is the team. This is just a special use site plan amendment for Wildwood Community Church. You can see it's kind of located northeast of 24th Ave and East Robinson. The current zoning is R1 with a special use permit for a church. The site plan is tied to the special use permit, so we're just having to come through and update in order to update the site plan. Here is the existing site plan. You can see the church building, which will remain, and then it's kind of surrounded by parking lot. And then the new proposed site plan is the addition of a 12,000 square foot student life center and gym. And it's kind of just going over or on top of some of the existing parking, kind of tucked away from the road along that green belt system. And then this is just kind of a zoomed out view of the Wildwood campus. That north parking lot to the left is not part of this site, but it's kind of serving as parking for the church. Here is the preliminary rendering of the new building. We are asking for a variance from the masonry requirement, just since it's so far off the road behind the church, kind of tucked along that green belt. So hopefully the church can put some of that money more towards the interior, serving the students. And then just kind of summary of the request is this is really just for a new site plan, adding the student building. The use of the site and the zoning would remain the same. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions of the applicant? Okay, I don't want to, thank you, Libby. I don't want to be derailed by the bridge question, but, so we will carry on. Is there any comments that we have from any audience members that they'd like to make on this one? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion as presented.
Do you want to have discussion first or after it's been?
Yeah, if there's additional discussion, go carry on.
So maybe I can take a quick look. I want to know exactly what the language is, because if the city accepts a new piece of infrastructure, then
Is it in the document? It's not, it's in between the two parking lots. I know where the bridge is, but it's nowhere even close to what this development is.
well, I mean, it says in here, I'm looking at the December 19th meeting for the Board of Parks. It says there's a request from the church to dedicate to the city of Norman a pedestrian bridge. Maybe I'll ask the city, is this
On
just
page 43,
independent?
It goes in a little bit more. It says, connecting the new parking lot to the church campus, the pedestrian bridges, would be built over the existing greenbelt trail and have double columns to minimize impact to water flow. So it's pedestrian only. But it still begs the question, once it's built, who's maintaining it?
So just for point of clarification, this is, because there is an existing bridge on the north side of the property. This is for a new bridge
A
to the south
second,
side?
yep, a second pedestrian bridge. It doesn't
So
say
that-
replacing the current, it says a second.
There's a strip of parkland that the city owns in between, and the park board voted to grant an easement to the church to allow the construction of a bridge. So I think it's been worked out via an easement from what they voted on.
Right, the only question that I am responding to is the question of maintenance. I don't see anything in here that indicates that there was any agreement formally for Wildwood to retain maintenance, so it being on public parkland or within a public easement. Yes, there would be some presumption of us taking that over. Now, when the easement comes through, other language can be included to change that, but I apologize that I'm personally unaware of this particular matter, so I haven't seen an easement or any language that would answer that question for sure for you tonight.
So it'd be fair to say that once the bridge is going to be built to the specs of the city, the assumption would be that if it's going to be the city's responsibility, would that be fair to say?
I would say it's not answered until that final easement document is filed.
Okay.
On page 43, down near the bottom of where I was reading, it says, and I don't know what commissioner this is, but Mr. Bragg said the new sidewalk would connect the neighborhood. And then Commissioner Davidson asked who would maintain the bridge, and staff said Wildwood would be responsible. And then it goes on to say that the new bridge would be twice the existing size.
Okay.
So we do have it in writing in here. We just had to.
But the formal agreement will be put in
Yes.
place at some point in time in the future with that easement, correct?
If there is an easement document, could you point me to the line where you see a reference to an easement?
So page 43 of the, and then it is, so there's the yay and the nay. Do you see that?
Yes.
So not where it says Commissioner Esri, go up 2
Easement
sentences
to granting the
from the bottom of that really large paragraph above it.
Okay. If and when that easement documents come through, if it hasn't come through already, it would be ideal for that to be the document that would state the agreement. But again, that's not something that necessarily comes across my desk, so I have not personally seen it today. That's something I can watch for. But since it appears that the record is that there will be an agreement to maintain it, I don't anticipate that there will be any issue getting language in there to confirm that. Apologies on that item.
Appreciate the clarification. Is there any more discussion?
I have a sub-question. So when would that language be put in the agreement? Before or after it goes to city council?
Again, I don't know.
The
You know
bridge
the
is
background.
actually not part of this request.
That was also a question.
Yeah. So this request is just to include the new building with the site plan. The bridge is off-site, and so it wouldn't be affected by this vote.
And it doesn't matter.
Okay, we'll save that for a rainy day. So back to the item 6 on the agenda pertaining specifically to the matters discussed of the exterior appearance of the gymnasium. Is there any additional discussion? Then I will take a motion
Move to approve?
I second it.
and a vote, please.
You may vote. All votes have been cast. 0.
Thank you. Okay, item 7, TFCU rezoning. This is for the consideration of approval, acceptance, rejection, amendment, and/or postponement of ordinance O-2425-22, an ordinance of the Council of Oklahoma amending section 36-201 of the Code of the City of Norman so as to remove Lot 1 and Block 2 of East Lindsay Plaza, Section 5 to Norman, Cleveland County, Oklahoma, from the SPUD Simple Planned Unit Development District and place in the same SPUD Simple Planned Unit Development District and providing for the severability thereof of 1451 12th Avenue Southwest. The staff have a presentation.
Hello, Justin Fish with the Planning Department. As stated, we have an application to amend the Simple Planned Unit Development SPUD located at 1451 12th Avenue Southeast. They are looking to amend their original site plan to include a second parking lot, a second lot, an access point off of Eastgate Drive, a circular drive off of 12th Avenue, and let's see, I believe that was it. So the subject lot is currently zoned SPUD with some residential R1 2D South. Existing land use. An aerial image of the site. This is looking north on 12th Avenue, looking south on 12th Avenue, looking east on 12th Avenue towards the site, and looking west across the street. This is a picture looking north on Eastgate Drive. And this is a picture looking towards the site west on Eastgate Drive. This is the proposed site plan amendment. There is a parking lot to the west. That is where the new parking lot will be. There's a circular drive on the east side on 12th Avenue, or on the west side on 12th Avenue, and there is a proposed building that they're looking to add. Staff forwards this request for amendment to SPUD for the Planning Commission for consideration. Staff is available for comments, and so is the applicant.
Thank you. Is there any questions for staff? Does the applicant have a presentation? No. No? Oh. Any questions for the applicant?
So currently, the plan is a rec-style gym, maybe like a gym-style business in the sense of like a gymnastics-style place. Does that make sense? I don't know how to qualify that. I'm not in that business, but,
So like a youth gymnastics
Right.
center?
right, yes, sir. Yeah.
I'm sorry, how many stories tall?
One.
One story?
One.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you. Any discussion among Planning Commission? I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve?
We have a motion to approve in a second, and we have a vote.
You may vote. All votes have been cast and it carries.
Any other discussion?
Great job.
Appreciate that, thank you. We're just waiting. Waiting for that. All right, we will adjourn the meeting. That'd be good. Can I borrow a? Yeah, I'll see you next week.